Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the show for leaders who want real results, not more noise. Join Emanuel Rose as he helps business builders turn AI from a confusing add-on into a practical advantage with clearer messaging, stronger trust, and smarter systems. If you felt a shift happening in real time, you're not imagining it. In the agentic pivot, Emanuel calls it the move from experimenting with AI to building with it, so it supports your team, your brand, and your growth. Let's get into it.
Wow, we are melting down already. All right, give me 1 second. I'll get this cleaned up.
Welcome to
Give me 1 second while we get this sorted out here. Wow, what is happening with my... Restream has never had this issue before. So we're going to go here and see if that fixes it. Bizarre. I don't know what's going on. This is a wild one. I'm trying to figure out how we're going to get, there's something at least. Well, now that I'm working through my technical issues of something I haven't seen before, this is Emanuel Rose, and we will have to actually do some editing on this show because Restream is being goofy. Today's guest is Christopher McCormick. He's a senior HR executive, founder, and CEO of Visionary Consulting. Christopher brings more than 20 years of experience partnering with C-suite leaders across healthcare, tech, finance, and retail to turn business strategy into scalable talent systems. He has led global organizational redesigns, built high-performing HR teams, and implemented leadership development and workforce planning strategies that drive measurable outcomes. His work sits at the intersection of talent architecture, data, and business performance. Christopher, thanks for joining me today in the midst of all this insanity that I haven't seen before with my platform. So apologize for that.
No worries.
It is.
Gotta love technology.
Holy cow! Yeah. Well, I guess we're going to be in some kind of a weird setup today. I'll make you the big one. I'll be the small one.
No, like the mini me, tiny me. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, welcome to the show, and this is I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me today about HR and AI and the implications of what you're seeing in the marketplace. So you've spent a career helping to translate business strategy into talent, and what have you seen kind of happen as AI has become more readily adopted?
Yeah, I think AI being readily adopted is happening in HR and affecting HR pretty right out of the gate. There's a lot of things that can be automated. If you think about talent acquisition and looking through job descriptions or generating job descriptions and matching them to candidates' experience and all those things that can be very processed or automated in that nature, getting people's legal paperwork on and onboarding and all those sort of tasks that can be managed, questions around your benefits, all of those things. So we've seen a lot of impacts in the HR space of being able to operationalize a lot of manual stuff. And so that's a good thing. And at the same time, it's also had some shifts in how certain work is being done. So HR business partners are now expected to be more strategic and less focused on some of those manual tasks or those manual things, and their work continues to evolve in that space. And I also think that the biggest challenge that people have is trusting AI and trusting that it's coming in and it's going to be able to do the job, and it's going to be reliable. There's not that relationship building that you get to have in some cases. I think with younger generations in the workforce, they actually have a little bit more relationship with AI, and so they're a bit more trusting of that. But I think the older you get in the generations of the workforce, the less likely they are to adopt it right away, and so that change management curve is a bit bigger.
It is an interesting time in that we've got such diverse generations in technology adoption, right? I mean, to kind of young boomers, Gen X, millennials, and the Zs. That's a lot of it's a lot of different viewpoints at a fundamental level.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the younger generations, they started during the pandemic going to school with technology and AI and Zooms, and so they're a bit more apt to, they've had tablets in their hands since they were born, and so they're a little bit more trusting of the technology. They understand it, and the gamification of it, and how to play with it and how to prompt it in ways that are going to have outcomes, whereas the older workforce generations are not as used to doing that sort of prompting or asking questions or giving prompts in a way that are getting back the desired outcomes right away. So they tend to have a little bit more of that tension out of the gate. So it's interesting to see it play out.
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit about like some of your clients who are like the most tech forward and deploying AI at a high level and getting value from it.
I would say the ones that are most tech forward are similar to some of the work that we've seen. I think you and I, Emanuel, have seen some cases where people are deploying it. They're not giving it its biggest problems. They're going in, they're putting it in some background processes. They're testing it. They're doing good work inside internally before it goes external or starts to touch a customer or an end product that may be in that shape. And they've been early adopters, so they've done all of that. And now that they're taking it external, they're being very very close to the customer experience. So one customer of mine, in case in point, is constantly going out and asking, please give us feedback. Here's some surveys. If you see any glitches, let us know immediately. We'll get on the phone. We'll set up calls. Like, they are really, that loop of feedback is tight, and they're asking for it constantly. And they want to incentivize the customers at the beginning. So they'll be like, we're going to give you 40% off of your monthly subscription until we can learn and grow. So you're going to be kind of a test beta phase for us
Right.
as we're taking it into the market and getting really good at getting feedback and getting this honed for a broader launch and a broader scale. And I think companies that are doing that type of thing with customers are smart, because those customers feel like, oh, you're trusting me to help you bring this to market. I have a lot of say in how this is going to end up in the end users' hands and future users. So I think those are the types of people that I'm seeing that are doing it and doing it well. And the ones that aren't are kind of going out, launching, and then kind of hoping that it all works out. And I always say hope is not a strategy, but a lot of people use it for one. And that's where I think it becomes, when stuff starts to falter or fall down, they start to blame AI versus maybe it was about how you manage the change along your customer viewpoint or your employee viewpoint per se.
I do think it's amazing that organizations of all sizes have completely skipped any kind of strategic planning and change management planning and just jumped right into tools. And you're like, how could you guys do that?
Yeah. I actually looked at some research. I did some data and of like AI implementation, and it was like 70% of the time is spent on the tech stack, and like 10% was on culture, like a sliver was on, like, I don't remember, like employee engagement. And then the strategy, this was business strategy, was like the lowest. Like, how are we putting this into our overarching business strategy? That's like the lowest percentage. It was like 2% of the time is spent thinking about How is this a strategic play? And so then
Yeah.
you look at all the headlines and you look at all the data and you look at all the fear, and you're like, of course people are fearful, because leaders are not actually taking this and saying, here's our strategy and here's how AI maps onto that strategy and here's what that means for you. And they have a very clear narrative of what that change management looks like over time. So of course everyone's running around scared going, I'm going to be replaced by a robot. Should I trust
Yeah.
it? Should I not? It's like they haven't done the thinking.
Super immature, and it'll cross all sizes of organizations, right? And
Yep.
I wonder if some of what led to that is the fact that the retailization of ChatGPT in 23, right? Like it was kind of driven from the ground up versus from the top down.
That's right.
And so it was, it's not like it was just a big Microsoft project and it came in from corporate, everybody was just kind of using stuff. And then the organization's never really caught up to the what I call, the governance piece, where you got to say, bring the shadow IT, shadow AI out and say, we're not doing that anymore. And as a matter of fact, put a pause on this while we plan and figure out what we're doing, right?
Yep, that's right. And I think that, it was the Wild West for a while. People were saying, we want you to use AI. We want you to be AI savvy. And then all this, people are bringing in like this AI and that AI and tool over here, tool over there, and everybody starts doing all their own things, nothing talking to each other. And then we wonder why it's so dispersed and not integrated and not thoughtful from a user and a customer experience once you get to that point. So governance is critical. Absolutely critical.
That's interesting. So the kind of the things that I've seen for HR tools have been a lot of stuff around, like job description development and resume sorting and initial interviews by AI voice, ranking of resumes against the job description. And what other sort of things have you seen that are tools that people are using for that part of the HR process?
I see. Well, for talent acquisition, certainly, I think it's a big play in talent acquisition. I also see it playing out in HR operations. So again, when people have questions about, how many vacation hours, or can I get vacation, or what does my benefits plan look like? Does this cover my dependents? So a lot of the total rewards things, I think, in as far as benefits and what that could look like, and compensation questions, those can get pretty well automated. I also think even some of the
performance
AI
management, necessarily. That's just a chatbot with some FAQs at that level, right?
That's right. Or, knowledge-based articles by the SMEs who put it in, and the chatbot's like sourcing it. But I think that where the AI is happening is seeing where the trends are and being able to then aggregate, like, these are the top things and these are the better answers we can give. And so there is that aspect of it. And I do think that in performance management, they're starting to see some really good AI in the performance management process, so that it's taking some of that manual work off of both the employee and the manager, and you can actually start to have it AI be, you're using a bot to answer some of these questions or think through, and they're kind of prompting you with questions about certain things based off of your previous answer. That, again, okay, so you said this, now did you really mean that? And maybe this is the next move as we think about career growth and career trajectory, and where people want to move within the organization. It starts to populate some possibilities for you before you even go into that conversation with, let's say, your people leader, to say, hey, I ran this by my AI tool for performance, and these were a couple of things that they thought I might want to look at. What are your thoughts? And the manager can then take it to their, performance management AI or chat, and sort of see, does that match up with what I'm seeing, and what is performance versus potential, and what does that look like, and how do we aggregate that inside the organization and the company? So starting to show up there too.
Interesting. And then, we've got this big push with the AI agents, and I think that's going to create a lot of really interesting issues for all of us. But I think particularly in the HR space, and that someone's going to have to manage these agents, and then how do you how do you figure out? We kind of know how to manage people, but we really don't know how to manage the agents yet. So what are you seeing? What are you forecasting for that?
Do we know how to manage people? I mean, it's kept me employed for a while.
Yeah.
Yes, we've gotten better at that. I think there's a couple of things and thoughts that I have around who manages AI. And I think obviously every one of us has a role to play in the inside of an organization. I think much like a paper performance organization, you're managing the performance of your employee. So I think whoever the business process owner is has to manage the performance of that AI, unless it's something that's technical and it's a glitch and like we need to get that off to tech because we're seeing a lot of problems technically with that AI that's being giving us bad answers and it's glitching all over the place. So there is a technology aspect to it. There's shared accountability for sure, but as far as the work it needs to do, the work that the AI needs to be doing for the business process, I think that becomes the business process owner's accountability to own that performance. And that may not necessarily be Christopher managing the performance of the talent acquisition. It might be my head of talent acquisition is managing that for that team, and the head of total rewards is managing for that team. But it is something that they need to be working through and tooling and letting us know as the owner of that work from an HR perspective. If I'm the CHRO and I'm looking at that across my groups, I need to be able to know all of that data so that I can go to my head of IT or my chief information officer and I can say to them, here's what we're seeing in the trends, and here are the biggest glitches, or here are the biggest gaps that we're seeing. What can we be doing on our roadmap to enhance these things? What are you already thinking about? What do we need to be thinking about? So there becomes this aggregate way to manage the maturity of AI as it grows within the organization, and also as it updates from a governance perspective. And I think part of that is it moves so quickly and iterates so fast. Some of the ways that we manage things from a previous iteration of business is a little clunky and slow.
Yeah.
So even that example I gave, that's like a big undertaking in a big ship that when you try to change direction, it takes a little bit of time. And AI is more like speedboats changing direction all the time, and they can do it quick and fast and nimble. And so to kind of gather those speedboats and say, come into this big ship that we're trying to all go this way, it gets a little untenable at times. And so how do you keep your eye on all of this swirly stuff that's happening around the big ship as you're turning it? And that's not easy. That's a question I think we have to keep asking ourselves is where are we too slow? And where do we need to maybe slow down and make sure that we're making strategic decisions versus just moving at this pace of, because it does move so fast. That doesn't mean your decisions as an organization need to move that fast, because you're thinking about, potential, implications to employee, to your patient health, or you're thinking about like, what is that going to look like to somebody who is in an operating room, or somebody who's going to be behind the wheel of that car, or whatever that looks like. You got to be thinking in bigger terms, bigger picture.
Yeah, and for the way that I break this whole process down of AI innovation, the agents is like step 7, right? Like there is so much groundwork and foundational activity that happens before that, because what you're describing is that a person in a functional area, let's say in marketing, is going to have a product manager, and that product manager is going to have to know how to program and understand KPIs and update a piece of software essentially, in order to get the outcomes that is the expectation of that CMO and that CEO above them. And
that's right.
And that's a dramatic job change in terms of a technical expertise and understanding to be able to manage a swarm of agents to get these KPIs.
And the swarm of agents too, and we've talked about this, Emanuel, is sort of that architecture. We see a lot of siloed work being done in organizations by people, right? So you have, a marketing person over here doing, product manager who's not talking to your IT person, who's not talking to your HR person, who's not talking to your finance person. They're all off doing their own thing. Thus, the agents are even off doing even faster things. And none of those things are talking to each other, because you have really great use cases for AI in finance. You have really great use cases for AI in talent acquisition. Those are different AI tools that are not always talking to each other. And so we talk about silos in organizations. Then you have siloed organizations and siloed AI in the organization. It starts to become this wild, wild west of unruly crazy. And then you've got to really start to get your arms around, like, what are we trying to do? Where's our focus? And you can have a flashlight or you can have a laser. So if you want your AI to be helping your strategy, you need to get it more lasered versus just having it go out and try and do everything all the time for everybody. You got to get it focused and honed in, trying to target what's your outcomes that you're trying to produce, and have everybody focused in on the end goal, the end game.
Yeah, and I still think even at this stage of development, it's an 18 to 36 month process to build this out and actually have the foundation set in a way that you can capture the ROI and not completely F it up in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. As kind of a wrap up, maybe you would just break down for me your guidance for an HR department if they haven't really started a cohesive tool acquisition, or how you recommend they get started, 2 or 3 action items for them to bring it all together and start that foundational work.
First of all, I would say to anybody, and not just HR, is make sure that you are talking across your organization. Like, have an AI council or governance council, see what is being done across the sphere of the organization and not just your view, so that as you're bringing whatever you're going to bring in and test, you're doing it in a way that is going to potentially have tentacles that go out and touch other places and other parts of the organization, so that as you're coming in, you're testing and you're starting to iterate, you're doing it in a mindful and thoughtful way that it's including your other stakeholders within the organization. Don't do it in your own vacuum or silo. Be mindful about that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And that first movers group is critical. And even if you have started, it's not too late to start integrating some other departments in.
No, not at all. Well, because especially from an HR perspective, they're going to be impacted by it. If you're doing it in talent acquisition, you're hiring for legal, you're hiring for sales, you're hiring for marketing. Those people leaders are having an experience with what you're bringing into the organization. So of course they're going to have a point of view.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, it's an interesting little rat's nest that we've created. And I think there's going to be some big business in training people how to train agents, and then how to manage and monitor. And because and I have this conversation with my clients a lot, which is you have to decide, do you want to be a software developer, or do you want to keep being an SME in what you're good at, right? Yeah. And not everybody's cut out to be a software developer and manage these things.
I think about, Emanuel, I think at some point it's going to be, I have this idea in my head. We're going to have the super agent. So the supervisor, how do I become a super agent? Your bots are going to be asking, like, how do I get promoted to this? And then they start, they get offers from different companies. They're going to start getting counter offers, and we're going to have to be like trying to do retention bonuses for our AI agents that we've built internally. When it gets to that point, I'm going to be very, very, I'm going to laugh. I'm going to be sitting back laughing, because I'll be like,
well, I predicted this. I like your screenplay there, Christopher. Well, I appreciate you taking time to chat today. And if somebody wanted to reach out and get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Sure. You can go to, you can email me at christopher@consultingvisionary.org, or you can go to my website, which is consultingvisionary.org. And happy to answer any questions there.
Well, we'll check in with you again in a few months and see what's changed.
Sounds great.
Thanks again, Christopher.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI.
Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.